Some gachas let you summon cute anime girls in overly designed outfits that make no sense to me. Occasionally, big beefy men, often K-pop pretty boy twinks, muscle mommies who I often dream of crushing my skull, and children. Ew. But that's a topic for a different day. Other gachas let you summon 4 naked women. Like a lot of naked women. This one licks the tentacle. Fanservice is very common in gacha games. Some people love it, others despise it. This has essentially caused a very long-running war between these two types of players. And so I wanted to sit down and talk about fanservice, what it is, and do gachas need it in order to be successful. Depending on what you are talking about, fanservice has a couple of different meanings, so before we continue, let's establish a core definition. In the context of gachas, fanservice refers to content that is meant to erotically tantalize the player, whether it be light, for example, a jiggling of the breast, or a tasteful showing of the thigh, or an intimate moment in the story, or something more in your face like the aforementioned naked women, or otherwise women in very revealing outfits. Blatant moaning when climbing a mountain, game modes that allow you to touch the girls, or story moments where characters are in various degrees of erotic situations. There are more examples I can bring up, and I will throughout the course of the video, but this should be enough to establish our core definition. In order to keep some semblance of clarity, this video will be split into 4 distinct sections. First, Fanservice Bad, discussing why people don't like fanservice. Second, Fanservice Good, discussing why people like fanservice. Thirdly, we will discuss why gachas have so much fanservice, whether or not they need it, as well as taking a deeper look into the various examples I will bring up throughout this video. Fourthly, and finally, a short closing thoughts section. A lot of people do not like fanservice, and they aren't afraid to admit it. But why is that? Obviously, it differs from person to person, so let's focus on some common reasons as to why. From a design perspective, some people are uncomfortable when characters are heavily exposed or are just straight up naked. For some, it's a personal discomfort. For others, it could be based on religion. The specific reason isn't too important. This discomfort is why they don't like playing games that put a heavy focus on making super fanservice designs where girls are wearing G-strings or other bikinis, bathrobes, super short dresses and shorts, erotic versions of specific outfits like maids, schoolgirls, nurses, etc., or whatever this is. Most people who play games do so recreationally. Being able to look at your character and be comfortable with how they look is an important aspect of having fun. Another common reason for not liking fanservice from a design perspective has to do with the context and realism. Often character designs are in heavy conflict with the environment the character is in. This is Tess. She is a character from Snowbreak Containment Zone. When she released, her story was that she has spent multiple months in a snow-filled landscape. However, as you can see, she is dressed as a stripper magician. From a logic standpoint, she is not suitably dressed for the environment, which can create a disconnect between the character and player. A lot of gachas also have very sexualized versions of specific outfits like maids, schoolgirls, nurses, nuns, etc., which leans into the realism aspect. Schoolgirls wouldn't dress like this, neither would nurses, maids, nuns, and other professions. Unless it's a Halloween party, I guess. Even though video games are typically an escapism from the real world, some players need a baseline realism in order to fully absorb themselves in these virtual worlds and have fun. A very common type of fan service is jiggle physics. A lot of players don't like them, mostly because of how intensive they are. Breasts, butts, thighs, they jiggle in real life, especially when they are large. So rather than disliking jiggles wholesale, most people have an issue with how intensive they are. The lightest brushing of the wind will send titties flying to the moon and back, and that's the problem. But of course, there are also people who dislike jiggles, period, regardless of how realistic or non-invasive they are. Some players rather everything stay in place as if they were made by stone. From a story perspective, there's something called master love. This is a specific type of storytelling. Essentially, it is a story that revolves around all the side characters falling in love with the main character. Usually you see this type of storytelling in dating sims, visual novels, or any other type of romance story. But for some reason, it is also very common in gacha games. The main complaint here is that often, instead of female characters having a well thought out, fleshed out story, they are often reduced to another pair of tits for the main character to fawn over. Instead of having interesting backstories, personalities, goals, wants, fears, arcs, etc., they are reduced to mere bodies. Something odd that happens with these types of stories is that every now and then, you will get complete female characters. They have goals, personalities, backstories, everything else that I said. However, the more appearances they make in the main story, they will slowly lose everything interesting about them, keeping one or two core character traits and constantly thirsting after the main character. The death sentence, also known as waifu-ication. You may have noticed that I didn't mention male characters. Well, that's because male master love is extremely rare, if non-existent, so it's not a major factor in the fanservice discussion. I also didn't really talk about male fanservice designs. Again, that's because male fanservice designs doesn't really exist in gachas. It's very rare. Most gachas don't really do much with the character designs of men. Usually they just wear suits or generic pants and shirts. They don't really wear anything interesting, and their body isn't really focused on in the same way that a female character is. A big reason as to why some players don't like fanservice has to do with the age of characters. Most playable characters in gacha games are teenagers or children, and they dress very provocatively. And so a lot of adult players feel uncomfortable looking at and playing as these underaged, scantily clad characters. But do keep in mind, if the players themselves are also underaged, they are teens or tweens, then this isn't really a problem for them. From what I can gather, those are the main reasons as to why people don't like fanservice. There are most likely more reasons, but I want to stick to the broad, universal reasonings rather than individual specific reasons. Now, let's talk about why people like fanservice. At the end of the day, the reason why people like fanservice is very simple. My pee-pee is hard and I like it when it does that. I could sit here and pretend like there are many super deep complex reasons as to why people like fanservice, but in truth, it's quite simple. People enjoy looking at hot men and women in revealing outfits, or watching them in their birthday suits. People like breasts, pecs, muscles, abs, butts, and thighs, and watching them jiggle like jello is mesmerizing. If I'm going to be staring at these characters for a long time, and I'm going to be watching their story unfold for years to come, why not make them narratively and visually tantalizing? Being able to play minigames where I can touch the girls is quite immersive. Stories that let me play as a self-insert main character where all of these beautiful women want to devour my hot dog is awesome. And hey, nuns, maids, nurses, pretty dope. These characters aren't real, so honestly, who cares what they look like? Who cares what they're wearing? I like it, so who cares? You know, it's nice. It makes me feel good. And I love the idea of being the king, constantly being surrounded by all of these insanely sexy women. Let me drown in the debauchery. Why do people like fan service? From what I can gather doing research for this video, as well as my own personal life experience, having played gacha games since 2011, as well as just growing up watching anime, playing video games, and engaging with various other types of media where fan service is very, very common. Long story short, my pee-pee hard. Like previously mentioned, a lot of gachas are drowning in fan service, but why is that? One of the reasons is because the various creators of gacha games are themselves degenerates. Let's use the biggest gacha studio, MiHoYo, as an example. Before the release of Genshin and MiHoYo's grand quest for world domination, they were a small, incredibly degenerate studio. Their games, Honkai Gouken 1 and 2 and Honkai Impact 3rd, heavily leaned into the Yuri fandom. Yuri is a Japanese word that basically translates to lesbians. The story would put the characters in various erotic situations, and the girls were also often dressed provocatively. They also leaned heavily into lollies. There was an entire god race of them, legit Cthulhu, like HP Lovecraftian horror Cthulhu, and various other Lovecraftian monsters were in Honkai Impact 3rd as an entire race of lolly gods. Yeah, MiHoYo was weird. They also had the romance between Bronya and Sele, and, of course, Teresa's existence. Also, let's not forget their infamous manga character that raped schoolgirls. I'm just let you sit with that for a second. MiHoYo and so many other studios like fanservice themselves. They want to see more of what their hearts desire, so they just create it themselves. That's one of the reasons as to why there is so much heavy fanservice in gacha games. Another core reason has to do with the concept of sex sells, the idea that if you are able to tantalize a person, they will more likely buy a product, in this case, buy summon currency to get virtual waifus and husbandos. But how true is this idea? Objectively, there isn't a lot of evidence to suggest that a heavy fanservice character will sell more than a conservative character. If you look at the most consistently successful gachas, you'll notice that most of them don't have a heavy focus on fanservice. At best, they have some light service, like jiggle physics, some romance, a tasteful showing of skin, nothing too intense. More specifically, let's look at some of the most successful banners of all time. Furina, Nahida, Raiden, Acheron, Firefly, Sexy Anime Man from Love and Deep Space. I don't play this game, I have no idea who this is, but this game is surprisingly successful. Besides the man, and well, let's be honest, Raiden, who's wearing a slutty kimono, these characters aren't super sexualized. Sure, they are showing skin, but that's not sexualization with the exception of Raiden. Snowboard Containment Zone is a very interesting case study for this specific topic. It launched back in July of 2023 and wasn't very successful. It earned a couple million and then immediately fell off a cliff, earning a couple $100,000 every month. However, plot twist, with the release of Katya Klein in version 1.5, it made a comeback. It started earning enough money to keep the lights on. The reason for this was the drastic swan dive into debauchery. Characters went from wearing tactical outfits, basically vague, futuristic military outfits, and they started to wear either skin-tight clothing or barely anything at all. This was a big talking point in the gacha community. People praised the shift in direction because it seemingly proved the idea of sex sells. But did it actually? Well, not really. While yes, Snowbreak is earning more money now, the problem with Snowbreak was never the character designs. As somebody who used to play Snowbreak, I was a beta player, I played the game when it officially released day 1 as well, and I officially quit during the first anniversary. The biggest problem with the game was the lack of content, poor optimization, and non-existent marketing. The designs of the characters themselves were perfectly adequate. Snowbreak didn't really prove the idea of sex sells because the main reason the shift in direction was successful was because of all of the buzz surrounding the community. Because more people knew of the game's existence and it had more content and better optimization, the player base was able to grow. Now, whether or not that new content is good is a completely different discussion. Let's just say there's a reason this game is barely able to clear $1 million revenue every month. While researching for this project, I came across an interesting article called "Does Sex Really Sell? Paradoxical Effects of Sexualization in Advertising on Product Attractiveness and Purchase Intentions." Obviously, I'm not going to read you guys the whole thing, so I'll leave a link in the description. Feel free to check it out yourselves. It's pretty interesting. I do, however, want to read you some sentences. To test the sex sells assumption, we examined how Italian men and women react to sexualized advertising. Women showed lower product attractiveness and purchase intentions toward products presented with sexualized female models than with neutral ads, whereas men were unaffected by ad sexualization. Moreover, women's lower consumer responses towards sexualized female ads were due to higher negative emotions. The present study has practical implications for marketers because it suggests that sex does not sell. Long story short, this article is basically saying that sexualized ads does not positively impact sales. In fact, it does the opposite. Women are less likely to spend money on ads if the ad is hypersexualized. Translating that to gachas, it means that women are less likely to buy summon currency and summon for characters if the characters are hypersexualized. They either are completely naked, they're wearing pasties, they're wearing hypersexual like bunny girl outfits or schoolgirl outfits or nuns. Women are actually less likely to spend money. And then men don't really see a change in spending habits. They are just as likely to spend money on an ad that is not sexualized than they are to spend money on an ad that is sexualized. Obviously, this is just one article. This does not 100% concretely disprove the idea that sex sells, but this article, Snowbreak's Resurrection, and most top gachas not having heavy fan service heavily suggests that fan service isn't actually necessary for a gacha game to be successful. I've noticed a growing trend where some gacha games allow you to touch the virtual characters. Personally, I think this kind of stuff is weird, but it seems to be the next step in the evolution of fan service in gacha games. These type of game modes are very positively received, and I won't be surprised if we see more of this kind of interactability. I said that really weirdly. I should re-record that, but I'm not going to. I won't be surprised if we see more of this interactability in more gachas in the future. Throughout the years, I've noticed two big problems with the discussion on fan service. First, a lot of people who don't like fan service are incredibly hostile towards others. If a game isn't filled with naked women, the developers will be labeled as woke and are trying to cater to fake fans. And if a player doesn't like the sexualized designs, they will also be labeled as woke and fake fans. Worst case scenario, developers and players will be actively harassed and sent threats just because women aren't wearing G-strings. As I was writing the script for this video, it was announced that the gacha game Brown Dust 2 will no longer make male characters and will essentially double down in its fan service. Immediately, someone made this post where some random guy called people upset by this decision tourist, aka fake fans. People are celebrating this decision because it means the game will receive exclusively fanservice designs from now on. It's okay to be happy with this change in direction, but calling people tourist is ridiculous. You are not a true fan just because you like staring at women in their underwear. And somebody is not a fake fan just because they don't want to stare at somebody in their underwear. Second, a lot of people who don't like fan service are oddly prudish and equally hostile. The recently announced Hawkeye Star Rail character, Few, or however how you pronounce it, has been labeled as overly fanservicey by some players because she's showing some skin. Specifically, she's showing a lot of leg. This is ridiculous. She is not sexualized at all. She is simply wearing an elegant dress that shows some leg, which is perfectly fine. Is Farina a fanservice design? She's showing some leg. How about Klee, the 6-year-old child? Is this a fanservice design because she's wearing a dress that shows a little bit of skin on her leg? At the end of the day, fanservice is a very nebulous concept. Is showing skin sexual? No. But also, yes? It depends. It's not a black and white situation. A bikini can be sexual, but it's also a completely normal thing to wear at the beach. Some bikinis are definitely more sexualized than others, but where do you draw the line? Is there a bikini design that is acceptable, or are bikinis always overly fanservicey? Grace is showing a decent amount of skin due to the fact that she has big breasts and is wearing what I can only describe as a sports bra. I'm not a fashion person. I have no idea what this is called. Is she overly fanservicey? In my opinion, no, but others disagree. I have seen people complain about the amount of skin that she's showing and the fact that she has big breasts. Even though in real life there are women that have naturally big breasts. The Bernice character trailer for Zenless Zone Zero received a surprising amount of pushback. The reason? Bernice dancing was gooner bait, aka overly sexual, aka fanservice. Do I agree with this notion? No, similarly to the Fuse situation, I find it completely ridiculous. Bernice is literally just doing a bunch of meme dances. She does the Gangnam style, for God's sake. She does the Gangnam style. This is not overly sexual. It's not fan servicey. Well, I mean, it is fan servicey because it's literally just referencing a bunch of memes. This whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous. Character design, story, trailers, marketing, artwork, realism, personal likes, dislikes, and biases. It's all so muddled. Personally, I like and hate fan service. Women hot, men hot. What can I say? I like looking at attractive people in risque clothing and situations, but I also love cool looking people in dope looking clothing, suits, armor, warriors, wizards, bikers, etc., etc. I don't like it when games blindside me with random nonsensical fan service. I hate when I'm playing a game that takes itself seriously and then they randomly throw a bunch of half-naked women in weird sexual situations at me. I especially hate it when characters that used to be well developed and fleshed out slowly turn into boring caricatures of themselves, all for the sake of putting them into more fan servicey situations. I've mentioned this in a previous video. My favorite gacha game of all time was Destiny Child, which was sadly shut down back in 2023. This was an incredibly fanservice game, some of the most degenerate designs I have ever seen, but it surprisingly had a decent amount of covered up designs that I absolutely loved. Unlike something like Snowbreak, Destiny Child was always a fanservice game, so I knew exactly what to expect when I downloaded it. Not only that, Destiny Child was the complete package. Drop dead gorgeous artwork, amazing music, a phenomenal story, and some decent gameplay. I don't need fan service in order to enjoy a gacha game. In fact, I prefer gachas without them because often games without them take themselves more seriously and care more about developing a good game. Often, I find that fan service centric gachas are just bad because they don't care about actually making a good game. A lot of them have really good core ideas, but then the actual executions of those ideas just aren't good because the developers only care about drawing or making 3D models of a bunch of half-naked women all the time. And yes, I am talking about Nikke, Goddess of Victory. How did you know that? I will never forgive ShiftUp for shutting down Destiny Child and replacing it with the so much more inferior Nikke, Goddess of Victory. I am, a year later, I am still furious about that decision. Fan service is a very nebulous concept. The biggest problem with the fanservice good/bad discussion is how unnecessarily hostile everybody is towards each other. It's very difficult to have an actual discussion about this topic, which in all honesty is why I made this video. I'm hoping that the video will find some semblance of success and people will leave comments. That way we can all have an open, respectful discussion about this topic. Originally, I wanted to make a bigger, longer, more in-depth look into this topic, but writer's block hit me hard and it was a Herculean struggle to even make this much more condensed video. So please feel free to leave a comment and maybe we can have a discussion. I won't promise to reply to every comment since I try to only reply if I have something of value to say, but I will read every comment. And who knows, maybe in the future I'll revisit this topic, hopefully without the writer's block. Anyways, y'all watched that Zenless 1.3 trailer? I swear, this game gets better with every update. Miyabi, my darling, please come home soon! Hey everyone, Vladimir here. Hope you enjoyed the video. I would really appreciate it if you guys left a like, dislike, comment, subscribe, or don't. It's up to you. And if you somehow aren't sick of my voice yet, then feel free to watch one of my other videos. Just press on one of the videos on the screen. Either way, thank you so much for watching and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.